This is very exciting.
We're actually facing each other.
Using
it's like
true
3D.
words.
I can almost feel I can touch you.
We can use real words and talk and all that. I've got to begin with your column this morning in the paper, which caused massive hilarity all over the country. And I'm going to read just a couple of paragraphs about Mitt Romney, defining Mitt Romney. His teenage years were more turbulent. He was sent to a private school where he was saddened to find out there are people in America who summer where they winter. He developed a lifelong concern for the second homeless and organized bake sales with proceeds going to the moderately rich. Some people say he retreated into himself during these years. He had a pet rock, which ran away from home because it was starved for affection. He bought a mood ring, but it remained permanently transparent. His ability to turn wine into water detracted from his popularity at parties. We got 10 billion Twitters about this column, my favorite of which was, "When the revolution comes, David Brooks will be spared the guillotine by the line, a lifelong concern for the second homeless."
You know,
They'll let you go.
they cancel the convention for one day. I have no news to write about, so I just make stuff up.
And look what happens.
And so the depressing thing, it's all partisan. The reaction is entirely partisan. The Democrats thought it was funny. The Republicans thought it was not funny at all. So
How could that be?
These are the days we live in.
Let's talk. You're defining Mitt Romney here, sort of. I mean, that is the point of the convention. We're going to humanize Mitt Romney over the next 3 days. How do you think that's going to go? Give me a scenario. You would understand.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of interested by the tug of war in the Romney soul. So all the Republicans, they all want to humanize him. And apparently his wife wants to humanize him. And he gives some interviews, including to Politico, where he says, I am what I am. Yeah, I'm not going to. Well, it's like, you know, those other guys, Barack Obama, hope he changed it, human fuzzy. I'm just going to deliver for the bottom line. I think that's a mistake. I don't know about you, but I want to see the inner turmoil.
The inner unhappy. When did this start? This business of we have to know the innerness. I mean, we didn't care about Dwight Eisenhower's innerness. Right?
We were in a better age then. I don't like the personalist political particularly, but we have had a history of candidates who have been witty in private. When you would talk to their aides, Al Gore was always witty in private. John Kerry was witty in private. The only person who wasn't witty in private was Richard Nixon. Even his aides said, no, he's not witty there either. So I don't know if you can recall the first.
It's hard. I think the beginning of all this, okay, the absolute beginning of the we must know the inner turmoil thing was Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And I remember a Joe Klein story in New York Magazine in which he recounted Bill Clinton standing up to his abusive alcoholic stepfather and saying, no, you will not hurt my mother, or something like that. And that was sort of the beginning of the Clinton transformation.
I think that's a good point. And as usual, Al Gore did a bad parody of it, because not only did he kiss his wife to an extreme extent, but he did something which I thought was actually off-putting. He talked about his sister's death, who died of cancer.
Yeah.
And I thought at a political convention that I didn't thought that was going a little too far.
Well, you know, the weird thing about Al Gore was that if you saw him like doing environmental stuff, he got very human. I mean, he wasn't talking about his inner turmoil, but he was likable, he was cheerful, he was engaged, he was a person you'd like to hang out with, talk about the environment, but he lost all that otherwise. And I'm wondering maybe Romney doesn't even like to talk about the issues, though. I can't figure out what he likes to talk about.
He's on his campaign face, and he says, this is my job, my mission here is to do this, and then all that other stuff goes away. I know several people who know him. I know a guy who was in the Mormon church in Boston, and apparently there was a sort of a listserv that went around where if you were moving, they'd say, can anybody help me move? And Romney had just lost his Senate race, and apparently he'd broken his collarbone, and he shows up at one morning at this guy's house with his arm in his cast and says, I'll help you move. And he spends the whole day hauling boxes with one hand. And that's like a trivial story. Another one is some guy was poor, unemployed, his kids were injured in a car crash, and he showed up one Christmas morning with a bunch of equipment for the guy to have. And so there are all these stories, but I don't know if he wants to tell them.
The evil side of me thinks that these stories are like the neighbor that you have who's incredibly helpful and he's always coming over and fixing something for you, but then you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to invite him over for a drink, or oh my gosh, we're going to have dinner with them, and you just would rather they not move your furniture.
It's a bad deal. Yeah, well, Romney doesn't want to come to your house for dinner, so I wouldn't worry about that.